Cool. Let's just test this clicker. Awesome. Who uses Snapchat? Yeah, this is a pretty heavy Snapchat crowd. I can feel it. I can feel it. Well, this is good because this means that we're going to learn something today. The reality is there's a lot of people that use Snapchat. They are your customers. They are your future customers. And so we'll spend some time talking a little bit about who they are. There's going to be some Snapchat stuff in this deck. That's the audience that we know the best. I apologize in advance, but we're going to try and keep this pretty insights focused. And then very shortly we'll be bringing up the panel and we'll introduce each of them at the appropriate time. So the topic of our panel today is called Capturing the Consumer. And the first step in capturing the consumer is knowing where the consumer is. It seems pretty straightforward. But the reality is technology is moving so quickly right now, and its implications on culture and society are so broad that it's often difficult to tell where the consumer actually is. They might have been someplace yesterday and now they're a different place today, or maybe they were someplace yesterday and they're still in that place, but they're also in this other place today that they're really into, and the place that they used to be, which they're currently still on, they're less interested in. And so these little nuances are kind of bedeviling for marketers, and really understanding kind of the context and the psyche of the consumer, where they are today, is very important. So what I wanted to talk to you about was a place that consumers are today where they have never been before and have never been reachable before by marketers at scale. And that place is the camera. I'm going to show you a quick video that sort of illustrates it a little bit, and then we'll come back after that and unpack it. So if we just turn up the volume on this. And then
that kind of camera. It's this kind of camera. It's a camera that adds magic to your yard and makes early mornings a little more fun. It brings your best friend with you anywhere you go, and comes with your very own mini-me. It's a camera with a map, so you can travel the world on your morning commute. It can lead to adventure and help get you there. It's a camera for talking, because a snap says more than a text. So yeah, Snapchat is a camera where how you feel matters more than how you look.
There are a lot of use cases in that video of the camera that didn't exist when I was growing up with a camera, and probably the experience that you had growing up with the camera. And the interesting thing is those use cases, location services, creativity using augmented reality, using video and images that are personalized instead of text to communicate. These are really natural extensions of the camera on a smartphone, and they seem, completely obvious. But what that sort of natural experience belies is a fundamental change in the way we think about cameras. So when I was growing up, we'd be on summer vacation, and I remember my mom budgeting every photo that we took so that we had enough exposures for Christmas time when we would take the picture around the tree, and then, hit our maximum of 24 or 36 exposures. And each of those pictures had to be perfect because there was limited film. And then, of course, we would send the roll off. It would come back 3 months later after processing, and God bless my mother, her thumb was in all of the photos. The point being, that is a very different way of thinking about the camera versus what I just illustrated through that video. And the difference is the way we think about a camera today is a tool for communication. And the way we used to think about it was a tool for documentation and archiving of key moments in our lives. That's a huge, huge change for something as fundamental and common as a camera. That's really being driven by three major shifts. The first is there are 2 billion smartphones in the world. There were 1 trillion photos taken last year. We know that Snapchat, the Snapchat camera actually represented about 40% of all photos taken last year on smartphones. And so we know that Snapchat is for communication, and therefore we know that photos are being used primarily today for communication. So that's the major shift. The second major shift that has happened is how we're using the camera. And then the last is really access to innovation and technology. So things that used to be out of reach for the average consumer or small business owner, things like augmented reality, things like computer visioning, are increasingly available and in our hands and in the supercomputers that we call mobile phones in our pockets. So it was really around that premise of beginning with the camera that our company was founded 7 years ago. So when Evan and Bobby founded it, their vision was that the camera would essentially be the entry point to the web for millennials and for Gen Z and for future generations. And as you can see from this image, you know, the camera is capable of being that entry point to the web because it can achieve so many things. It uses the technology that's inherent in the phone to provide location context to everything that you're doing. It can be used for wayfinding. It can be used for creativity. It can even be used for transacting. So we announced a partnership a couple months ago with Amazon where if you open Snapchat, the app, it opens in the camera. If you open Snapchat and you just point that camera at any object in the real world, if that object or something similar exists in the Amazon catalog, you will have the opportunity to deep link straight to the Amazon website on your mobile phone and transact in the moment in the app. That is a crazy mind-bending use case that you can do right now if you download the app and start using it. But I genuinely encourage you to do that because it's such a leap in such a short period of time in terms of how consumers are engaging with the camera, with the phone, with commerce, and with the purchase journey. We just heard the previous speaker talk about that frictionless flow of the consumer journey, and we see that in full evidence. So who is using the full, you know, depth of the availability of services and value in the camera? Well, it's really millennials who are using it the most and Gen Z in terms of the full depth of it. And we should care about millennials for one very simple reason, and that's that they have incredible purchasing power. And that purchasing power is only going to increase year after year after year after year for the next couple decades. So that is the number one reason that this room should care and marketers in general should care about millennials. The second thing that is really the next question that the marketer needs to be able to answer is, you know, how are millennials going to exercise that purchasing power? Well, we know that they are going to exercise it using the tools and technologies that they are most familiar and comfortable with. So that brings us back to the mobile phone. That's point one. Point two is, what's the psyche of the millennial and what are their preferences in terms of engaging in a new world of content discovery and communication and the camera and other things like that, which previous generations did not have access to and didn't adopt. And that's the second thing that we need to understand. And it's with that insight that I want to kind of break some further insights about millennials out that hopefully will be helpful. So before we get into talking about them, I'm going to talk about Snapchatters as millennials because that's the audience that we know best. And I know that this room is filled with quant jocks, and so you're going to want to understand that I'm using a statistically valid sample size. So we'll start with the Snapchat audience in Canada. It's 6 million Canadians that visit and use the service every single day. And of those 6 million, roughly 2/3 are millennials. So we've established that we have the right sample size. So what are millennials doing? Where are they at right now? Well, one thing that's very interesting is that they are at some key pivotal moments in their lives that are lead indicators for different purchases, larger purchases, bigger financial commitments and decisions, moving to a new city, a new job, a raise, making real commitments, marriage, starting a family even. So these major milestones are starting to happen with this generational cohort, and those obviously are going to lead to a preference, as we see, you know, across our audience, a preference versus the population at large for being in the decision journey around autos insurance, life, travel, health, home insurance, mortgage. Financial planning even, we're starting to see that pop with millennials. And so we know that they're in market. We know that they have incredible purchasing power, and we know that they are having major life events that this room and the broader economy can help service and benefit from. And the last insight that I wanted to share here is that the window to influence a millennial's decision making is really, in terms of their brand affinity around financial services products, is really quite young. So what we see in terms of Snapchatters is that they are formalizing and cementing ideas of the financial services companies and brands that they work with, between 13 and 24. So even if you're a company that's focused on 35 to mid 40s, you need to be thinking about where the brand is first cemented in the minds of the consumers, because once you get to your mid 20s and move beyond that, it tends to be much more static in terms of the ability to move and change brand perception. Last component here, which is really interesting, is really around recommendations. So what influences millennials to make decisions around purchases? Well, the first piece is ease of use and ease of sign up. That comes back to the comment that I made earlier about them transacting and exercising their purchasing power on the technologies that they feel most comfortable with, so the phone. So if I'm going to be prompted to download an app or sign up or engage in a financial services product on the phone, it has to be native to the experience I'm in. I have to have control of it. I have to have the confidence that if I download it, I will be able to come back to the environment I was in without being misdirected in some other area. And so really, ease of use and ease of sign up are proxies for trust, control, and safety. And then the second dynamic here is really around what influences a millennial to make a decision. And what we find super fascinating is we've been separating out this concept of professional influencers and friends and family. And friends and family, it's intuitive, we know it. Friends and family are always going to be a higher influence driver in terms of our brand affinity and our purchase decisions than professional influencers. Because friends and family know us the best, and they know best what we'll like. And we see that across financial products, checking accounts, credit cards, you name it. So this concept of trust and control is really at the core of what marketers need to be thinking about, specifically with millennials and in financial services. This picture here is what you would see if you go to my Twitter page at @jstroltz. I'm clean shaven. I'm wearing a decent suit. Well, actually, you can only see a portion of it, but it looks decent from the photo. I look like I belong here, give or take. But what's interesting about my Twitter profile is that in my bio, I've got this pseudo legalese that I've inserted to protect myself from unwanted or unexpected consequences of being myself, right? So basically, if I have this in my bio, views expressed are solely mine and not those of my employer, you can guarantee that the only views I'm going to express are those of my employer, because I'm afraid I'm going to get fired if I express my own views. Right? That's why that's there. It's to protect me from myself. The reality is Twitter and other services perform, they solve for a need, they do something for a consumer, and the consumer increasingly is understanding what that is and what that isn't. And the reason that I have to put this disclaimer up there is because I recognize that I'm at risk, and I'm at risk because anyone can follow me and I can follow anyone. So everything I do is in a spotlight, regardless. So if I then contrast that with an experience on a trust and control-based platform like Snapchat, what you can see here is the picture is an avatar of me. It's not my actual photo. My handle, joe.stroltz, is sort of pretty straightforward, but it could be anything. I could make that as anonymous as I want it to be. For the 3 people here that are actually on Snapchat, you'll know that if you open the app and point it at the screen and hold your thumb down, it will read the barcode and send me a message instantly for us to connect. And you will also know, because the 3 people in this room that are on Snapchat must be super hardcore users to be in this industry and on the platform. They must be incredibly passionate about it. You will also know that when I get that friend request, I don't have to do anything with it. I am in 100% control of whether you come into my circle of people that I trust, that are my close friends and family. And as a result of that social contract that's implicit in this type of a platform and other platforms that are trust and control based, what we see with Snapchatters is they have 20 to 30 people that are in their circle. It's not hundreds or thousands. And as a result of all of that, I can actually be myself because I'm with the people that I know trust me and I trust them and are interested in what I'm doing. And so I can be me, right? I can be me with my dry, spontaneous, observational humor that is, it really made me the fan favorite of financial services conferences the world over. And you can see that on full display here in this snap. The point of all of this is that for a marketer, understanding the context that an individual is in is incredibly important, and understanding that audiences and millennials in particular who are driving this are moving to control and trust-based environments is critical in terms of being effective in marketing to them. I know that recommendations from friends and family are going to be more relevant for me, therefore I am more open to them, therefore I am more interested in promotional messages that are sent to me in environments that up that part of the social contract. I also know, and we know through research, that discovery, affinity, purchase intent, all are driven much more by friends and family recommendations and affinity than they are by professional influencers. And so I'm going to show you a quick example here of this is a financial services mobile app developer that advertised on the platform. This one's out of Denmark. I use this example because it's just a really great illustration of how to participate naturally on the platform and to recognize those subtleties that we've just been talking about. So what you'll see here is a super short promotional message. It's delivered in 6 seconds. It uses graphics and visual treatment that look like what someone who is just a regular user would post in that environment, and it's a little clue or a little tell, a signal to the user that says, hey, I get what this environment is about. I'm in on it. Don't worry, I'm not going to spoil all the fun. I'm not going to take your control. I'm not going to blow it. I get what's happening here. And as a result of filming it on an iPhone camera, using some of those graphics, you kind of get a sense of authenticity from this message that is completely at home in the Snapchat environment. So you see, she's actually speaking in English, but the translation is there. And at the end of the message, she says, "Swipe up to download the app." And users in that environment know that if that's the proposal that's being offered to them, they can do that with confidence and engage with it, and know that they can come right back to what they're experiencing and what they were enjoying. We're seeing this across all financial, specifically in the fintech business. It's driving incredible return on ad spend. It's driving great efficiency in sign up and in usage, and it's leveraging those nuances of a trust and control based environment, and benefiting from the halo of engagement that creates. Because the point here is, back to my I'm going knucking futs bumper sticker snap. I know that if I'm in an environment where I'm safe, then that's an environment that I'm going to create in. I'm not going to create in an environment where I don't feel safe. I'll scroll and read and be entertained, but I'm not going to put my 2 cents in. And so environments where you feel comfortable to create, marketers actually benefit from the halo of that mental orientation that the consumer is in. If I'm in a creation mode, then I am creating a snap, I'm sending that snap, I'm sharing it back and forth. If I see a message or there's something that's served up to me and I'm in that creative mode and I feel in control, I'm more likely to swipe up, to download, to trial. And so these are the little nuances that from a millennial and platform point of view that I'm trying to illustrate. So in summary, before we get to the panel, the psyche is understanding the psyche of the consumer is critical. We see a mega trend right now around adoption, high frequency adoption of platforms that are prioritizing safety, control, and trust. We're seeing the mobile phone take a very prominent role, not only in social media and communications, but also in the functionality that's endemic to it, like a camera, like transaction. And ultimately, you know, if we're successful in matching the environment that we're in to the message and the execution that we're delivering, we should be able to, as marketers, benefit from the halo effects of the psyche of the consumer in that space. And so with that, I'd love to bring the panel up and we can kind of, you know, pull this apart and talk a little bit more about capturing the consumer.